Hello, good evening. Happy Monday. Happy new week to you. So let's dig back into Gods with Amnesia, Subterranean Worlds of Inner Earth by Robert Sepehr. So I don't know, this book is so juicy. I'm pumped to read more. Welcome in Tanya, awesome new name, and welcome all who come at any point. So into chapter 3 we go. In man, grand symbol of the mysteries, thoughts in occult anatomy, honorary 33rd degree Freemason Manly P. Hall states, quote, the most secret rituals of ancient initiation were performed in subterranean crypts, which were called caverns of the mysteries. In the Gothic rites, the final ceremony in which the new initiate was invested with the insignia of his order took place in a high, vaulted, cavernous chamber in the presence of the luminous statue of Balder. Here also are the seven sleepers of Ephesus and the cave-dwelling rishis of India, the seven original beings who, in the mythology of Central America, were the cave-born progenitors of the races, end quote. Hey, welcome back, Tanya. Good to see you. In his book, The Chronicles of Akakor, if that's how you say that, Karl Brugger gives the history of the Ugha Mangulala people. It's UGHA space MONGULALA people. As provided, gives the history of the Ugha Mangulala people as provided to the author by the leader of their tribe. According to their chief, the tribe's ancestors were allegedly part of a vast empire which spanned across all of South America in ancient times. Some of their forefathers, the chief claimed, created vast subterranean cities beneath the Andes Mountains and in parts of western Brazil. In 1971, due to the constant encroachment of foreign settlers into their territory, 30,000 survivors of the Ukamangulala tribe allegedly escaped, seeking refuge inside the ancient network of underground cities. This inner earth kingdom allegedly consists of 13 separate underground complexes, all connected by tunnels, with one extending all the way to Lima. Others are said to be located throughout the Andes mountain range of Peru, as well as parts of Brazil. Mato Grosso, maybe, Portuguese for thick bushes, is the third largest state in Brazil by area. It is known for a network of subterranean tunnels and for being home to an ancient pre-Columbian light-skinned civilization associated with those tunnels. Archaeologist Harold Wilkins remarks in Mysteries of Ancient South America, quote, it is probable that descendants of this white empire exist today in more than one part of unexplored Brazil, and among the Andean outliers in regions rich with gold, on the confines of the Amazon's headwaters. There are many stories of the existence of strange white people today, handsome bearded men and beautiful white nude women with symmetrical Greek features, in the unknown Sertão of the central Mato Grosso and the Brazilian highlands, and northwards and northwestwards in the mountains beyond the headwaters of the Amazon and its tributaries, end quote. Angelfish, so good to see you. Dude, I called you in the last stream. There was some funny stuff. It was just a teeny, like a little moment, but I thought of you. And the way you make me laugh. Welcome. In the Popol Vuh, an ancient Guatemalan manuscript, whose title means the collection of written leaves, and which has been described as the great storehouse of Mayan and Central American legend and mythical history, there is much talk of a land in the east on the shores of the sea. This description neatly fits Plato's position of Atlantis. The Popol Vuh proclaims that it was from this land that the fathers of the people had come, and that they had also endured a great catastrophe, after which the land to the east disappeared. Wilkins draws the ties between Atlantis and South America. Quote, one of the South American colonies of Atlantis may, probably, have been the land called Brazil, and Brazil, indeed, was actually the ancient name of the land and born thousands of years before the arrival at Rio de Janeiro of old Pedro Cabral, the Portuguese navigator. That occurred in AD 1500 and has given rise to the sheer legend that King Emmanuel of Portugal named the land Brazil because the dye wool, Brazil wood, Bianca Biancaea sapan, which is Biancaea space Sappan, was found there. As a matter of very curious fact, the name Brazil was known to the old Irish Celts as High Brazil. Dang, oh man. Brazil! I want to go there. And Peru. In The Hollow Earth, Dr. Raymond Bernard, an American archaeologist who now lives and continues to work in Brazil, reveals that, quote, mysterious tunnels, an enigma to archaeologists, exist in great numbers under Brazil, where they open on the surface in various places. The most famous is in the Roncandor Mountains of northwest Mato Grosso, to where Colonel Fawcett was heading when last seen. Fawcett. Is that dude I'm always thinking? And isn't it's a different dude? Hey, buddy. So good to see you. Yeah, I got all my stuff in and everything. I'm so glad that the interwebs is working. It's so weird the way it's all laid out, but look at me go. Thank you for your help with that. Hey, Flat Fellow, long time no see, man. Welcome in. Cool beans. Colonel Fawcett. I just want to look this guy up real quick. Unless, is this about to talk about Colonel Fawcett? Yeah, okay. Well, just calm down. That happens a lot. I looks okay. Lieutenant Colonel Percival Harrison Fawcett was a British archaeologist and South American explorer. Along with his eldest son, Fawcett disappeared under unknown circumstances in 1925 during an expedition to find Z, his name for a lost city, which he and others believed to be El Dorado, in the uncharted jungles of Brazil. And there's so much you can read about that, and there's a really good movie on Amazon, The Lost City of Z, or maybe just Z. It's not about zombies. It's about archaeologists, man. It's so good. Just saying. Oh, this lid's not snapped in. There we go. Okay, there's a little picture here. Figure 49. Artist's impression of the lost city of Z, believed by Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett to be the Mato Grosso, Brazil. Fawcett left behind instructions that if the expedition did not return, no rescue expedition should be sent, lest the rescuers suffer his fate. During the following decades, various groups mounted rescue expeditions without results. An estimated 100 would-be rescuers died on the countless expeditions sent to uncover Fawcett's fate. According to Dr. Raymond Bernard, quote, wow, I didn't know that. Quote, many Brazilian students of the occult share with the wife of Colonel Fawcett the belief that he is still living with his son Jack as residents of a subterranean city whose entrance is through a tunnel in the Roncador mountain range of northeast Mato Grosso, where he was heading when last seen after leaving Cuiaba, Cuiaba. The writer met in Cuiaba a native who claimed that his father was Fawcett's guide and who offered to take him to a certain opening leading to the subterranean world in the region of Roncador, which would indicate that Fawcett's guide believed in the existence of subterranean cities and brought Fawcett to one, where he was held prisoner, lest he reveal the secret of its whereabouts, which he might be forced to do on his return, whether he wished to or not. End quote. Mystics, welcome in. This is so juicy. Dr. Bernard believed that the lost city Fawcett sought was of Atlantean origin, but was actually situated below ground. He claimed that the Atlantean city for which he searched was not the ruins of a dead city on the surface, but a subterranean city with still living Atlanteans as its inhabitants. In his 1960 essay, quote, "The Mysterious Tunnels and Subterranean Cities of South Africa," end quote, or South America, end quote, the American naturalist Carl Huni, or Honey, Huni, said, quote, "The entrance to the caverns is guarded by the Bat Indians, who are a dark-skinned, undersized race of great physical strength. Their sense of smell is more developed than that of the rest of bloodhounds, or the best of bloodhounds. Even if they approve of you and let you enter the caverns, I am afraid you will be lost to the present world, because they guard the secret very carefully and may not let those who enter leave." End quote. The popular rumor is that the subterranean cities they inhabit descended from the Atlanteans, who had originally constructed them, but many of the details surrounding their origin seem to have been lost or forgotten. The name of the mountain range where these underground cities exist is Roncador, in northeast Mato Grosso. If you go in quest of these caverns, you take your life in your own hands. Like Fawcett, you may never be heard of again. According to John B. Leith, in the book Genesis for the New Age, there is another Germany, or New Berlin, inside the hollow surface of our planet. This inner or New Germany grew from the first or outer surface of Germany. The story begins in 1572 when 500 Germans from Saxe-Coburg, including some Prussians and Bavarians, were hired as soldier mercenaries by the King of Portugal, Sebastian I, to build a fort and man a garrison up the Amazon River in a fight against the Spaniards. As they sailed the river, they were fiercely attacked by the native Indians and forced to flee to the jungles, where they came across a cave entrance, which the natives fled from in fear. The new colonists made their homes in and by the cave, and eventually traveled further inward and downward into the cave's passages, ultimately leading to the Earth's inner subterranean habitat, which they reached in 1647. Along the way, they settled into various caverns, establishing 6 cities along a 3,000-mile route. And they fought off mysterious cavern creatures who were as fierce as the Amazon Indians. The massive populated caverns or underground cities were connected by a crude wooden track system. In 1647, upon entering the inner concave surface, the new Germans met the lost ancestors of the modern Germans, called Bods. They were extremely advanced, both spiritually and technologically, and decided to take their outer Earth cousins under their wing. They became known as the 6 Kingdoms of Saxony. The Makushi, which in parentheses it says Portuguese Macuxi, or Macuxi, which is Macuxi instead of the Macushi, Indians, are indigenous to the Amazon. Nomadic hunter-gatherers, they mostly move between Brazil, Guyana, and Venezuela. According to their oldest legends, they descended from the sun's children, children of the sun, and the protectors of the inner earth. Code. Rose, welcome. This is so good, y'all. This is so juicy. Figure 50A, image by George Hubner, 1895, Manaus, Brazil. Their legends speak of an entrance into Earth, which was to remain secret to outsiders. They would enter the Earth and travel for 2 weeks until they reached the interior. It is there, quote, at the other side of the world, in the inner Earth, end quote, where the giants live, people who stand around 3 to 4 meters in height. Figure 50B, unusually tall man from an indigenous tribe with Orlando Villas Boas, as state of Mato Grosso in Brazil, 1965. Doesn't even state what his height is. What are we referencing here? What is that he's holding? I don't know. According to the Makushi, the people were given the sacred task of guarding the entrance to prevent strangers from entering the interior of the earth. Makushi legends state that those who enter the mysterious cavern travel for 3 days, descending giant stairs, which measure around 33 inches each. After the 3rd day, they leave behind their torches and continue their journey deeper into the earth, illuminated by lights already present in the tunnels. Down deeper, they cross the lava zone, skirting an abyss where the incandescent magma, called lava when above surface, is bubbling. This is a very dangerous passage. The apprentice must be accompanied by an experienced guide, because many brave men have lost their lives in these hot chasms. After 4 to 5 days, those inside the cave would lose weight and corporeal mass, allowing them to move much faster. According to the legends, they seem to lose their weight the deeper down they go, until they almost float above the ground. It seems as if the gravitational force has disappeared. If this part of the story is true, it could imply that the climax of the Earth's gravity is not the center core, as mainstream science has suggested, but rather in the middle of the crust, in the middle of the magma zone, some 250 kilometers deep. On the 5th day of traveling down the subterranean tunnels, according to the legends, they would come upon massive caverns whose ceilings could not be seen. In one of those chambers, a sun-like object provides light. It appears as a large glowing orb, which supposedly has the power to rejuvenate the beings it illuminates. The air is sweet, fragrant, far from the surface pollution. In the words of Makushi ancestors, the earth core is a paradise filled with incredible wonders. Inside the earth, there are places where fruit trees are able to grow. The Makushi say that fruits like kajus, oaks, mangoes, bananas, and some lesser plants can be found 6 to 7 days into their journey. The further the Makushi people moved into the earth, the larger the areas with vegetation got. But not all the areas are green and prosperous. They warn that some places are extremely dangerous and should be avoided. The Makushi oral traditions continues to say that after passing these giant chambers, having passed half of their journey, they need to move carefully since the mysterious air can cause people to fly or float around. They would then reach a place where the giants lived. There, the Makushi explorers would eat the food of the giants, including apples the size of human heads, grapes the size of a human's fist, a delicious and giant fish that had been caught by the giants and given to the Makushi as gifts. After stocking up with food ordered or offered by the giants, the explorers would return home to the outer world, helped by the giants of the inner world. The Makushi are said to be the guardians of the underworld, the protectors of the entrance to the inner earth. Their legends describe a land inside the land, which is filled with amazing treasures and beautiful gemstones. Many consider this legend a myth, just another ancient fairy tale, but to the Makushi, their legends were as real as it gets, and they protected the entrance. Then, European explorers came to the Amazon in search of riches, ventured into the caves, and never returned. There were 5 Europeans, 2 Spanish, and 3 Englishmen, thirsty for the gold and gemstones found in large quantities there. Figure 51A, Map of the Amazon River, South America. Welcome in. Hello, Secret Soul. Awesome. It's juicy. Since then, the Makushi say that the giants punished them for failing to fulfill their duties, and the legends of the giants faded away with the years. It is possible that the Makushi legends are real, and somewhere in the Amazon, an entrance to the inner earth existed in the past, or still does today. In 2008, archaeologists in Mexico discovered 11 stone temples in underground caves and an underground road that Mayans believed was the road to the mythical underworld city known as Chibalba. According to ancient Mayan scripture, the Popol Vuh, the route to the underworld was filled with obstacles, including rivers filled with scorpions and blood, lined with houses shrouded in darkness, or swarming with shrieking bats. Some of the newly discovered caves were submerged in water and contained human bones, which the ancient Mayans believed was a portal where dead souls entered the underworld. Excavations over the past 5 months in the Yucatan caves revealed stone carvings and pottery left for the dead. Figure 51B. Archaeologists Victoria Rojas and Lara Henderson explore Mayan caves in Merida, Yucatan Peninsula, April 2008. In Guatemala, archaeologists have also discovered 800 kilometers worth of tunnels, which have been mapped underneath the Mayan pyramid complex at Tikal. What? This looks like Machu Picchu. Figure 51C, the monumental Mayan architecture in Guatemala at Tikal dates back to the 4th century BC. Wow, it's so interesting. It's so reminiscent of Machu Picchu. Tikal is an ancient Mayan citadel in the rainforests of northern Guatemala. Its iconic ruins feature the massive ceremonial Lost World Pyramid, the Temple of the Grand Jaguar. At 70 meters, Temple 4. Son of a gun, man. So if the I is before the V, like if the I is to the left of the V, does that mean it's 4? Right? Yeah, because then if it's like to the right, that would be 6. I think it's okay. So Temple 4 is the tallest pre-Columbian structure in the Americas. Could there be hidden passages built beneath the site? If so, who could have built them? Patagonian giants are a legendary race of extremely tall people said to have inhabited the southern end of South America. They supposedly exceeded double the average height of a European man, some accounts having giving heights from 8 or 9 feet to over 14 feet tall. Figure 52, a map by Diego Gutierrez from 1562 showing the gigantic region of the giants, and Tierra de Patagones, land of Patagons. Huh. Let me see if I can hold that out better. The giants were famously mentioned by Ferdinand Magellan and his crew, who claimed to have seen them while exploring the coastline of South America in the 1520s. Antonio Pigafetta, a crew member and chronicler of Magellan's expedition, wrote about their encounter with natives twice a normal person's height. Quote, "One day we suddenly saw a naked man of giant stature on the shore of the port, dancing, singing, and throwing dust on his head. The captain general, i.e., Magellan, sent one of our men to the giant so that he might perform the same actions as a sign of peace. Having done that, the man led the giant to an islet where the captain general was waiting. When the giant was in the captain general's and our presence, he marveled greatly and made signs with one finger raised upward, believing that we had come from the sky. He was so tall that we reached only to his waist. He was well proportioned. The captain named the people of this sort Pathagoni." End quote. Figure 53, Patagonian giants, Dom Pernetti, 1771. Hey, Scott, welcome in. Many other accounts of giants in South America followed. In 1579, Sir Francis Drake's ship chaplain, Francis Fletcher, wrote about encountering very tall Patagonian natives in The World Encompassed. Ooh. Quote, "Magellan was not altogether deceived in naming the giants, for they generally differ from the common sort of men, both in stature, bigness, and strength of body, as also in the hideousness of their voice." End quote. Man, I mean, what does it sound like? Like really high pitched? In the 1590s, Anthony Knivet wrote that in Patagonia he had seen the bodies of dead giants that were 12 feet or 3.7 meters long. Also, in the 1590s, William Adams, an Englishman aboard a Dutch ship rounding Tierra del Fuego, reported a hostile encounter between his ship's crew and abnormally tall and powerful natives. In 1766, Captain John Byron had circumnavigated the world in the HMS Dolphin. Word leaked that the crew had seen 10-foot tall giants in South America. The official account of Byron's voyage, appearing in 1773, recounts, quote, "When we came within a little distance from the shore, we saw, as near as I can guess, about 500 people, some on foot, but the greater part on horseback. One of them, who afterwards appeared to be a chief, came towards me. He was of a gigantic stature, and seemed to realize the tales of monsters in a human shape. These people may indeed more properly be called giants than tall men." End quote. Figure 54, a voyage around the world in His Majesty's ship the Dolphin, commanded by the Honorable Commander Byron. Maybe that's what that means. 1767. Were the Patagonian giants troglodytes? The marble caves of Patagonia, Chile, also called the Marble Cathedral, are considered by some to be the most beautiful cave network in the world. Formed by 6,000 plus years of waves washing up against calcium carbonate, the smooth, swirling blues of the cavern walls are a reflection of the lake's waters, which change in intensity and hue depending on water levels and time of year. Figure 55A, Marble Caves, Patagonia, Chile. Boom, dude. That's sweet looking. In the year 2000, the Cave of the Crystals was discovered by miners excavating a tunnel for the Nika mine in Mexico. The main chamber contains some of the largest natural crystals ever found in any underground cave, with the cave's largest crystal found to date measuring at 36 feet or 11 meters in length, 13 feet or 4 meters in diameter, and 55 tons in weight. Nika. NAICA. Figure 55B, Mexico's cave of crystals connected to the Nika mine 980 feet below the surface of Nika, Chihuahua, Mexico. Oh, wait, did I show you the picture? I don't know if I did. Oh, man. And then these spectacular crystals became so large because the extremely hot temperatures inside the cave, reaching a steamy 136 degrees Fahrenheit, 58 degrees Celsius, encouraged microscopic crystals to form and rapidly grow. Gazing at these gigantic crystals, one can't help but get carried away imagining what else awaits further exploration of these cave systems. Figure 56, Giant Crystal Cave in Nika, Chihuahua, Mexico. Um, all right, that was chapter 3. Now we go to chapter 4. The Hopi Indians maintain that their ancestors did not arrive from the north, nor by boat, but instead climbed onto the surface of the earth from the underworld. The specific place of emergence of Hopi legend lies deep inside the Grand Canyon, an enchanted opening from the mysterious recesses of the earth. The Native American lore associated with the Hopi and some other tribes states that the Grand Canyon was formed as a result of a great deluge, which had drowned the previous third world that had forgotten the path of divinity. They revere the canyon as an Eden, the beginning of the fourth, our present world. Hopi cosmology specifies that the Grand Canyon was the place of emergence from whence the Hopi emerged from their subterranean refuge after the flood had destroyed the third world. Several inner world entry points are said to be located on Hopi land in the canyon, one of which is honored in ceremony as the dwelling of an ancient godlike race. The dark opening in the rounded boulder, it is a place of pilgrimage for the Hopi, located at the bottom of the canyon by the Little Colorado River. A sacred site, it is strictly off limits to all but Hopi people. The lore further claims that the Hopi were assisted by insect or ant people who lived in the inner world of caves and caverns. Pale humanoids with thin limbs and slightly arched backs. Figure 57A, Grand Canyon located in northwestern Arizona. The Hopi legends also speak of the star people who visited them. They considered themselves direct descendants from the Pleiades, who helped them as gods. The Pleiadians are often said to have a Nordic appearance. The Smithsonian Institute may have discovered artifacts inside a massive cavern with intricate passages and rooms, including tablets bearing hieroglyphics, copper weapons, bronze tools, huge statues, which were described as appearing like Egyptian and Tibetan deities, as well as over 500 mummies, all male, assumed to be warriors. Most of these details are officially disputed. The explorer involved dis- the explorer involved described a massive opening near the cave entrance, adorned with statues, somewhat like a cathedral. An article published in the Arizona Gazette on April 5th, 1909, that people in Grand Canyon, or or rather, that's not what it says, that the Grand Canyon was once home to a lost civilization consisting of people of gigantic proportions. It also mentions the discovery of an enormous underground citadel by an explorer named G.E. Kincaid, who came upon it while rafting on the Colorado River. Figure 57B, the Arizona Gazette on April 5th, 1909. This way. Explorations in Grand Canyon. Explorations in Man, I wonder if we can't read that. It's so tiny. The latest news of the progress of the expedition of what is now something of the something of the cavern, the something draught that below. Oh, man, it's too tiny. Interesting. Okay. Oh, you guys, it's right here. I love it. This front page story detailed the exploration of a mysterious cave which contained Egyptian hieroglyphics and Tibetan Buddhist-like statues. The entrance to the city was at the end of a tunnel that stretched for almost a mile underground. Here is the text from the article. Arizona Gazette, April 5th, 1909. Explorations in Grand Canyon. Mysteries of immense high. Cavern being brought to light. Quote, the latest news of the progress of the explorations of what is now regarded by scientists as not only the oldest archaeological discovery in the United States, but one of the most valuable in the world, which was mentioned some time ago in the Gazette, was brought to the city yesterday by G.E. Kincaid, the explorer who found the great underground citadel of the Grand Canyon during a trip from Green River, Wyoming, down the Colorado in a wooden boat to Yuma several months ago. According to the story related to the Gazette by Mr. Kincaid, the archaeologists of the Smithsonian Institute, which is financing the expeditions, have made discoveries which almost conclusively prove that the race which inhabited this mysterious cavern, hewn in solid rock by human hands, was of Oriental origin, possibly from Egypt, tracing back to Ramses. If their theories are borne out by the translation of the tablets engraved with hieroglyphics, the mystery of the prehistoric peoples of North America, their ancient arts, who they were and whence they came, will be solved. Egypt and the Nile, the Arizona and the Colorado will be linked by a historical chain running back to the ages with which staggers the wildest fancy of the fictionist. A thorough examination under the direction of Professor S.A. Jordan, the Smithsonian Institute is now prosecuting the most thorough explorations, which will be continued until the last link in the chain is forged. Nearly a mile underground, about 1,480 feet below the surface, the long main passage has been delved into to find another mammoth chamber from which radiates scores of passageways, like the spokes of a wheel. Several hundred rooms have been discovered, reached by passageways running from the main passage, one of them having been explored for 854 feet, and another 634 feet. The recent finds include articles which have never been known as native to this country, and doubtless they had their origin in the Orient. War weapons, copper instruments, sharp edged and hard as steel, indicate the high state of civilization reached by these strange people. So interested have the scientists become that preparations are being made to equip the camp for extensive studies, and the force will be increased to 30 or 40 persons. Mr. Kincaid's report. Mr. Kincaid was the first white child born in Idaho and has been an explorer and hunter all his life, 30 years having been in the service of the Smithsonian Institute. Even briefly recounted, his history sounds fabulous, almost grotesque. And then I think this is his actual account right here. There's another quote in this article. First, I would impress that the cavern is nearly inaccessible. The entrance is 1,486 feet down the sheer canyon wall. It is located on government land, and no visitor will be allowed there under penalty of trespass. The scientists wish to work unmolested, without fear of archaeological discoveries being disturbed by curio or relic hunters. A trip there would be fruitless, and the visitor would be sent on his way. The story of how I found this cavern has been related, but in a paragraph. I was journeying down the Colorado River in a boat, alone, looking for mineral, some 42 miles up the river from El Tovar Crystal Canyon. I saw on the east wall stains in the sedimentary formation about 2,000 feet above the riverbed. There was no trail to this point, but I finally reached it with great difficulty. Above a shelf which hid it from view view from the river was the mouth of the cave. There are steps leading from this entrance some 30 yards to what was, at the time the cavern was inhabited, the level of the river. When I saw the chisel marks on the wall inside the entrance, I became interested, securing my gun, and went in. During that trip, I went back several hundred feet along the main passage till I came to the crypt in which I discovered the mummies. One of those I stood up and photographed by flashlight. I gathered a number of relics, which I carried down the Colorado to Yuma, from whence I shipped them to Washington with details of the discovery. Following this, the explorations were undertaken. The passages. The main passageway is about 12 feet wide, narrowing to 9 feet toward the farther end. About 57 feet from the entrance, the first side passages branch off to the right and left, along which, on both sides, are a number of rooms about the size of ordinary living rooms of today, though some are 30 by 40 feet square. These are entered by oval-shaped doors and are ventilated by round air spaces through the walls into the passages. The walls are about 3 feet 6 inches in thickness. The passages are chiseled or hewn as straight as could be laid out by an engineer. The ceilings of many of the rooms converge to a center. The side passages near the entrance run at a sharp angle from the main hall, but toward the rear they gradually reach a right angle in direction. The shrine. Over 100 feet from the entrance is the cross hall, several hundred feet long, in which are found the idol or image of the people's god, sitting cross-legged with a lotus flower or lily in each hand. The cast of the face is oriental, and the carving in this cavern. The cast of the face is oriental, and the carving this cavern. The idol almost resembles Buddha, though the scientists are not certain as to what religious worship it represents. Taking into consideration everything found thus far, it is possible that this worship most resembles the ancient people of Tibet. I'm going to pause 1 second. I got this. Gotta cough 1 second. Okay, well, let's see how that. Let's see if that did anything. Surrounding this idol are smaller images, some very beautiful in form, others crooked necked and distorted shapes, symbolical, probably, of good and evil. There are two large cactus with protruding arms, one on each side of the dais on which the god squats. All this is carved out of hard rock resembling marble. In the opposite corner of this cross hall were found tools of all descriptions made of copper. These people undoubtedly knew the lost art of hardening this metal, which has been sought by chemicals for centuries without result. On a bench running around the workroom was some charcoal and other materials probably used in the process. There is also slag and stuff similar to mat, showing that these ancients smelted ores. But so far, no trace of where or how this was done has been discovered, nor the origin of the ore. Among the other finds are vases or urns and cups of copper and gold, made very artistic in design. The pottery work includes enameled ware and glazed vessels. Another passageway leads to granaries, such as are found in the Oriental temples. They contain seeds of various kinds. One very large storehouse has not yet been entered, as it is 12 feet high and can be reached only from above. Two copper hooks extend on the edge, which indicates that some sort of ladder was attached. These granaries are rounded, as the materials of which they are constructed, I think, is a very hard cement. A gray metal is also found in this cavern, which puzzles the scientists, for its identity has not been established. It resembles platinum. Strewn promiscuously over the floor everywhere are what people call cat's eyes, a yellow stone of no great value. Each one is engraved with the head of the Malay type. The hieroglyphics. On all the urns or walls over doorways and tables of stone which were found by the image are the mysterious hieroglyphics, the key to which the Smithsonian Institute hopes yet to discover. The engraving on the tables probably has something to do with the religion of the people. Similar hieroglyphics have been found in southern Arizona. Among the pictorial writings, only two animals are found. One is of prehistoric type. The crypt. The tomb or crypt in which the mummies were found is one of the largest of the chambers, the walls slanting back at an angle of about 35 degrees. On these are tiers of mummies, each one occupying a separate hewn shelf. At the head of each is a small bench on which is found copper cups and pieces of broken swords. Some of the mummies are covered with clay, and all are wrapped in a bark fabric. The urns or cups on the lower tiers are crude, while as the higher shelves are reached, the urns are finer in design, showing a later stage of civilization. It is worthy of note that all the mummies examined so far have proved to be male, no children or females being buried here. This leads to the belief that this exterior section was the warriors' barracks. Among the discoveries, no bones of animals have been found, no skins, no clothes, no bedding. Many of the rooms are bare, but for water vessels. One room, about 40 by 700 feet, was probably the main dining hall, for cooking utensils are found here. What these people lived on is a problem, though it is presumed that they came south in the winter and farmed in the valleys, going back north in the summer. Upwards of 50,000 people could have lived in the caverns comfortably. One theory is that the present Indian tribes found in Arizona are descendants of the serfs or slaves of the people which inhabited the cave. Undoubtedly, a good many thousands of years before the Christian era, a people lived here which reached the high stage of civilization. The chronology of human history is full of gaps. Professor Jordan is much enthused over the discoveries and believes that the find will prove of incalculable value in archaeological work. One thing I have not spoken of may be of interest. There is one chamber of the passageway to which is not ventilated, and when we approached it, a deadly, snaky smell struck us. Our light would not penetrate the gloom, and until stronger ones are available, we will not know what the chamber contains. Oh. Some say snakes, but other boo-hoo this idea and think it may contain a deadly gas or chemicals used by the ancients. No sounds are heard, but it smells snaky just the same. The whole underground installation gives one of the shaky nerves and creeps. Wait. Yeah, that's what it says. The whole underground installation gives one of shaky nerves the creeps. Yeah. The gloom is like a weight on one's shoulders, and our flashlights and candles only make the darkness blacker. Imagination can revel in conjectures and ungodly daydreams back through the ages that have elapsed till the mind reels dizzily in space. End quote. Oh my gosh. Yes, it can. Oh, shit. Wow, that stuff is so juicy. Oh my gosh. What was it? A darkness that light cannot penetrate. Hey, let's flip this again. I flipped it right before I press go. Oh my god. Oh, we're getting close to the end of this article. Okay, an Indian legend. In connection with his story, it is notable that among the Hopi Indians, the tradition is told that their ancestors once lived in an underground world, or rather, in an underworld in the Grand Canyon, till dissension arose between the good and the bad, the people of one heart and the people of two hearts. Machedo, who was their chief, counseled them to leave the underworld, but there was no way out. The chief then caused a tree to grow up and pierce the roof of the underworld. And then the people of one heart climbed out. They tarried by the Red River, which is, I don't know, Pisisvai. They tarried by Pisisvai, or the Red River, which is the Colorado, and grew grain and corn. They sent out a message to the temple of the sun, asking the blessing of peace, goodwill, and rain for people of one heart. That messenger never returned, but today, at the Hopi villages at sundown, can be seen the old men of the tribe out on the housetops gazing toward the sun, looking for the messenger. When he returns, their lands and ancient dwelling place will be restored to them. Excuse me. That is the tradition. Among the engravings of animals in the cave is seen the image of a heart over the spot where it is located. The legend was learned by W. E. Rollins, the artist, during a year spent with the Hopi Indians. There are two theories of the origin of the Egyptians. One is that they came from Asia, another that the radical cradle was in the Upper Nile region. Herein, an Egyptologist, spelled Heeren, believed in the Indian origin of the Egyptians. The discoveries in the Grand Canyon may throw further light on human evolution and prehistoric ages. That is so fast. And then, that Moon Eyed People book that I'm reading, and they're talking about how the Cherokee people were direct descendants of the Welsh. Even before this article. Oh, wait, did I? Yeah. Prehistoric ages. The discoveries in the Grand Canyon may throw further light on human evolution and prehistoric ages. Even before this article, the Arizona Gazette published a short piece pertaining to the Grand Canyon discoveries. So that was the end of that whole main article, and now we're on to this other little bit of article right here. G.E. Kincaid reaches Yuma. Quote, G.E. Kincaid of Lewiston, Idaho, arrived in Yuma after a trip from Green River, Wyoming, down the entire course of the Colorado River. He is the second man to make this journey and come alone in a small skiff, stopping at his pleasure to investigate the surrounding country. He left Green River in October, having a small covered boat with oars and carrying a fine camera, with which he secured over 700 views of the river and canyons, which were unsurpassed. Mr. Kincaid says one of the most interesting features of the trip was passing through the sluiceways at Laguna Dam. He made his perilous passage with only the loss of an oar. Some interesting archaeological discoveries were unearthed, and altogether the trip was of such interest that he will repeat it next winter in the company of friends. End quote. And then that's the end of all those italics. That was just pages and pages of italics. Holy majoli! So juicy. Another lesser known subterranean location. So yeah, we're not reading the article anymore. We're moved on. Presumed to be familiar to the Native Americans is right below Los Angeles, California. Its discovery made front page news. That's near where I was born. In 1933, a mining engineer named G. Warren Schufelt was surveying the LA area for oil, gold, and other valuable minerals. He discovered what appeared to be a well-planned underground labyrinth with large rooms located at various points, and deposits of apparently man-made gold in the chambers and passageways. Some of the tunnels ran west for 20 miles under Santa Monica Bay. Shuffle believed these tunnels were only used for ventilation. He proceeded to draw a map and had it copyrighted. Figure 58, portion of map, published by the LA Times in 1934. Los Angeles Underground Lizard People tunnel map according to engineer G. Warren Schufelt. LA Times, January 29th, 1934. Right? Hey, no capitals, welcome in. Yeah, lizard people. That's what it says. A Hopi Indian named Chief Little Greenleaf told him about the legend of an ancient race of lizard people, explaining that around 4,000 years ago, fire from the sky fell on the western coast and covered an area hundreds of miles wide. Winslow Crater in northern Arizona is only one of the pieces that rained down at that time. Thousands were killed, their crops wiped out, their homes destroyed, and the forests set ablaze. The survivors from a gigantic meteor shower, which devastated most of the western coastal U.S., found shelter underground. Schufelt and Chief Little Greenleaf were convinced that the ancient legends and the readings from Schufelt's mystery machine were true. They decided to obtain a permit to sink a shaft into the ruins of the subterranean city. On 29th January 1934, The first story regarding the legend of the lost land of the lizard people made the LA newspapers. Los Angeles Times, January 29th, 1934. Lizard people's catacomb city hunted. Engineer sinks shaft under Fort Moore Hill to find maze of tunnels and priceless treasures of legendary inhabitants. By Jean Bosquet. Quote, busy Los Angeles, although little realizing it in the hustle and bustle of modern existence, stands above a lost city of catacombs filled with incalculable treasure and imperishable records of a race of humans further advanced intellectually than the highest type of present-day peoples. In the belief of G. Warren Shufelt, geophysicist, mining engineer, now engaged in an attempt to wrest from the lost city deep in the earth below Fort Moore Hill the secrets of the lizard people of legendary fame in the medicine lodges of the American Indian. So firmly does Shufelt and a little staff of assistants believe that the maze of catacombs and priceless golden tablets are to be found beneath downtown Los Angeles that the engineer and his aides have already driven a shaft 250 feet into the ground, the mouth of the shaft being on the old Banning property on North Hill Street, overlooking Sunset Boulevard, Spring Street, and North Broadway. And so convinced is the engineer of the infallibility of a radio X-ray perfected by him for detecting the presence of minerals and tunnels below the surface of the ground, an apparatus with which he says he has traced a pattern of catacombs and vaults forming the lost city, that he plans to continue sending his shaft downward until he has reached a depth of 1,000 feet before discontinuing operations. Legend supplies crew. This is still the article. Shufelt learned of the legend of the lizard people after his radio X-ray had led him hither and yon over an area extending from the public library on West 5th Street to the Southwest Museum on Museum Drive at the foot of Mount Washington. Quote, I knew I was over a pattern of tunnels, the engineer explained yesterday. Quote, and I had mapped out the course of tunnels, the position of large rooms scattered along the tunnel route, as well as the position of deposits of gold, but I couldn't understand the meaning of it, end quote. Then Shufelt was taken to Little Chief Greenleaf, to the medicine lodge of the Hopi Indians in Arizona, whose English name is L. Macklin. The Indian provided the engineer with a legend which, according to both men, dovetails exactly with what Shufelt say he has found. Fire destroys all. According to the legend, as imparted to Shufelt by Macklin, the radio X-ray has revealed the location of one of the 3 lost cities on the Pacific coast, the local one having been dug by the lizard people after the Great Catastrophe, which occurred about 5,000 years ago. This legendary catastrophe was in the form of a huge tongue of fire, which, quote, came out of the southwest, destroying all in its path, end quote. Continued on page 5, column 2. The path being several hundred miles wide, end quote. The city underground was dug as a means of escaping future fires. The lost city, dug with powerful chemicals by the lizard people instead of pick and shovel, was drained into the ocean, where its tunnels began, according to the legend. The tide passing daily in and out of the lower tunnel portals and forcing air into the upper tunnels, providing ventilation and, quote, cleanse and sanitize the lower tunnels, end quote, the legend states. The large rooms of the domes of the hills above the city of Labyrinths housed 1,000 families, quote, in the manner of tall buildings, end quote, and imperishable food supplies of the herb variety were stored in the catacombs to provide sustenance for the lizard folk for great length of time, as the next fire swept over the earth. City laid out like lizard. The lizard people, the legends has it, regard the lizard as a symbol of long life. Their city is laid out like a lizard, according to the legend, its tail to the southwest, far below Filth and Hope streets. Oh, no, not Filth. It's far below Fifth and Hope streets. Its head to the northeast at Lookout and Marta streets. The city's key room is situated directly under South Broadway, near 2nd Street, according to Schufeltz and the legend. This key room is the directory to all the parts of the city and to all record tablets, the legend states. All records were to be kept on golden tablets, 4 feet long and 14 inches wide. One, these tablets of gold, gold having been the symbol of life to the legendary lizard people, will be found the record of history of the Mayans, and on one particular tablet, the southwest corner of which will be missing, is found the record of the origin of the human race. Tablets photographed. Schufelt stated he has taken X-ray pictures of 37 such tablets, 3 of which have their southwest corners cut off. Quote, my radio X-ray pictures of the tunnels and rooms, which are subsurface voids, and of gold pictures with perfect corners, sides, and ends, are scientific proof of their existence, end quote, Schufelt said. Quote, however, the legendary story must remain speculative, unearthed by excavation. Oh, yeah, okay, end quote. And then continuing on this awesome article. The lizard people, according to Macklin, were of a much higher type of intellectuality than modern human beings. Isn't it awesome when you struggle to say the word intellectuality? So they were a much higher type of intellectuality than modern human beings. The intellectual accomplishments of their 9-year-old children were of equal to those of present-day college graduates, he said. So greatly advanced scientifically were these people that, in addition to perfecting a chemical solution by which they bored underground without removing any earth and rock, they also developed a cement far stronger and better than any in use in modern times, which they lined their tunnels and rooms. Hills enclosed city. Macklin said legendary advice to American Indians was to seek the lost city in an area within a chain of hills forming the fog of a horse's hoof, or rather, the frog of a horse's hoof. The contour of hills surrounding this region forms such a design, substantiating Schufelt's findings, he said, quote, Schufelt's radio device consists chiefly of a cylindrical glass case inside which a plummet attached to a copper wire held by the engineer sways continually, pointing, he asserts, towards minerals or tunnels below the surface of the ground, and then revolves when over mineral or swings in prolongation of the tunnel when above the excavation. He has used the instrument extensively in mining fields, he says, end quote. And that's the end of the article, or at least all the excerpts that they give out of the article. Mr. Arch Dunning of the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce stated in December of 1947 that, quote, it is quite possible, of course, that the supposed labyrinth really exists, but in view of the fact that the overlaying area is the immediate civic center area where an important building program is to be carried out, including federal, state, county, and city building, there is little probability of any further excavations, end quote. Did I see? Oh, I thought I saw Delaney Pearl. Mary! Oh my gosh, Mary, I've been missing you. I was hoping that you're doing all right. I hadn't seen you in such a long time. I'm so glad I see you. That I'm so thankful to see you. I just hadn't seen you in such a long time. I was thinking, man, I hope Mary's doing good. Okay. Yay. That was the last article that the LA Times published on any planned subterranean excavations of the tunnels below Los Angeles, but interest in the story has never gone away. Located in central Kentucky, Mammoth Caves! Eee! I've been here. Oh, okay. Okay, that wasn't a bad sigh. I just like I get excited. Oh, it's so cool. Okay. That was the last article that the LA Times published on. Okay, so wait, never gone away. Located in central Kentucky and covering well over 52,000 acres, the Mammoth Cave was established as a national park in 1941 and as a World Heritage Site in 1981, with a staggering 400 miles or 640 kilometers of, surveyed passageways. Mammoth Cave is by far the world's longest known cave system, over twice as long as the second largest cave system, Mexico's Sac-Acton underwater cave. And this is figure 59, tourists entering Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. I have descended that path. Archaeologists are constantly making new discoveries and additional connections to this cave system, adding several miles to this figure each year. Although many woolly mammoth specimens have been discovered at the Big Bone Stick State Park in Kentucky, no fossils of the woolly mammoth have ever been found in Mammoth Cave. The name of the caves has nothing to do with this extinct mammal, but rather the name mammoth refers to the gigantic width and incredible length of the passages which connect to the rotunda just inside the cave entrance. While surface animals may take refuge in the entrances of the caves, they do not generally venture into the deep. The following species of bats inhabit the caverns: Indiana bat, Myotis sodalis, gray bat, Myotis grisescens, little brown bat, Myotis lucifugus, big brown bat, Eptesicus fescus, and the eastern pipistrelle bat, Pipistrellus subflavus. Other animals which inhabit the caves include two genera of crickets, which are Hadanoicus subterraneus and Swetho or yes, Swethophilus stygius, Swethophilus latens, and cave salamander. Eurisia lucifuga, two genera of eyeless cavefish, Tiflichthys subterraneus, and Amblyopsis spelaea, and a cave crayfish, or Connectus pellucidus. Mammoth Cave is also home to the endangered Kentucky cave shrimp, Palaemonias genteri, a sightless albino shrimp. Well, that was one paragraph that wasn't very big. Oh, shit. So I'm going to show you figure 60 before I get... Oh, no, this is just tiny. The Echo River Tour, one of the cave's most famous attractions, took visitors on a boat ride along the underground river, but the tour was discontinued in the early 1990s for logistic and environmental reasons. Figure 60. Echo River, 360-foot underground Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. Several sets of Native American remains have been recovered from Mammoth Cave. Most of these mummified remains indicate intentional pre-Columbian funerary practice. Another fascinating discovery was the remains of cane torches used by Native Americans. Other artifacts such as drawings, gourd fragments, and woven grass moccasin slippers have been discovered deep inside the cavern system. Various federal and state laws protect the ancient human remains and artifacts within the caves. Explorers are properly trained not to disturb archaeological evidence, and some areas remain out of bounds even to seasoned explorers. H.P. Lovecraft's short story, The Beast in the Cave, is set in Mammoth Cave. He finished the final draft in 1905 when he was 14 and published it in June 1918 in the June 1918 issue of the amateur press journal The Vagrant. The plot involves a man on a tour of Mammoth Cave who separates from his guide and becomes lost. His torch finally expires, leaving him hopeless of finding a way out in the pitch dark. I've been pondering reading some H.P. Lovecraft. He then hears strange sounding footsteps approaching. Thinking it a lost mountain lion, he desperately throws a stone at the source of the sound. The beast is hit and crumples to the floor. The guide eventually finds the protagonist, and together they examine the fallen creature with the guide's torchlight. As the creature mutters its last breaths, revealing its face, they discover that it is a pale, deformed human who actually had lived in the cave for years. Wow. I wonder what he was coming to. I wonder what that encounter would have been like if he hadn't killed him. Figure 61, Carlsbad Caverns National Park, New Mexico. Interesting, right? Like if you think about feral children and stuff like that, like people that were never raised around other people. I do. I don't know why I've been thinking about feral children this week too. Ew. Yeah, imagine finding a cave like that and having no light that could penetrate it. Ah. There's a big old pit too. So wow, yeah, they're not even going to talk about that giant hole. There's a giant hole in Mammoth Cave. Okay. Carlsbad Caverns, a national park located near Carlsbad, New Mexico, includes the Big Room, a natural limestone cave chamber which measures 1,219 by 190 meters, or 4,000 by 625 feet, and 107 meters, or 350 feet high at the highest point. Oh, I gotta cough. Whew. It is the 7th largest cave chamber in the world. The Carlsbad Caverns are decorated with stalactites, stalagmites, and an incredible variety of other formations, which can be seen along several easily accessible trails. These massive caverns might provide insight into what one might find at much deeper depths down below the crust of the earth. In the October 1947 issue of Amazing Stories, there appears the following account. Quote, Norman Finley, a neighbor of a good friend of mine, told me about an experience he had which was rather unusual. He and a couple of other fellows were hunting down in the Big Bend country. I don't know whether you are familiar with the Big Bend or not, but there is no more wild or desolate area in that country. There is no more wild or desolate area in the country. Rugged, mountainous, cut by canyons, there are innumerable parts of it which have never known the foot of man. Dabble my little sweaty. Okay. It was in one of the most desirable areas that Finley and his companions found themselves. They had driven about 90 miles southwest of Marathon, Texas, a little town of about 700 people, at the foot of the Del Norte Mountains, 4,000 feet high, and had then gone on afoot. The dirt road just petered out, and they couldn't get their car further. They were hunting deer but had no luck. Just as they were about to call it a day, Finley spotted a mountain lion. He snapped a shot at it and knocked it over, but the lion just rolled over on his feet and started to leave those parts. Finley and the other fellows took after him, since it was obvious that he was wounded and not making very good time. They managed to keep him in sight for about a mile and were sure they had him when he ran into a box canyon. The lion, however, started up a faint trail up one side of the canyon to a small cave they could see about 100 feet from the floor of the canyon. They followed him up to this trail, but when they got to the cave, there was no lion. The cave was one of those dished out affairs that are so common in the Southwest, eroded out of the face of a cliff and cup-shaped. The only access to it was by that trail. But this cave was a bit queer. It had a sand floor and was just about big enough to park 20 cars on it. On the cliff edge was a low stone wall, and that's in caps. This in itself was not too unusual, because such caves have sheltered Indians for thousands of years. The thing that did make it unusual was that in the rear of it was a perfectly round hole. It was obvious that the lion had ducked into this. They approached it rather cautiously and tossed some stones in it to see if it could stir him up, but there was no response. They could hear the stones rolling and bouncing down an incline, and the sound just got fainter and fainter until it died away altogether. They then approached the hole and peered down into it. It was perfectly round, so it was about 4 or 5 feet in diameter. They couldn't see very far down it, but it appeared to descend rather sharply and at a steady gradient. The fellows gathered some dry grass from the canyon floor and made some torches. The incline of the bore was too steep for them to climb down, so they tossed the torches down it. They just slid down further and further and disappeared into the gloom. They never did see or hear of the lion again. At first, they thought they had stumbled onto some old Spanish mine workings, but there was no sign anywhere of a dump that always goes with a mine. By all rights, there should have been some sign of the earth and rock that had come out of that hole, but there wasn't. When they inspected the hole itself more closely, they were amazed at its symmetry and at the consistency of the section of the bore as far as they could see down it. The fact that the bore was perfectly round puzzled them too. If it was a mine shaft, it most certainly wouldn't have been round, but instead would have been flat on the bottom. The fact that the shaft extended straight and unwavering as a rigid pipe was cause for further amazement. Since the fellows had no rope with them, which would have been needed to descend the shaft as well as lights, they scratched their heads a while and then left. Finley wanted to go back with equipment and see how far down the shaft went and what was at the bottom of it. But ranchers are busy people, and he never went back. In the meantime, he got pretty well broken up when a horse threw him, and he now lives in Fort Worth while he has someone else to run the ranch. We talked rather idly about having a look at his cave someday. He says he knows exactly where it is and could find that box canyon with his eyes shut. So far, we haven't done anything about it, but we may either this summer or next when we get time to go down to Big Bend. Finley told me his story about a year before, Finley told me this story about a year before even you heard of Shaver, so you can be sure he wasn't influenced by the Shaver mystery. In fact, I don't believe he has ever heard of the Shaver mystery, even to this day. And that's by E. Stanton Brown, 4931 Bryce Avenue, Fort Worth, 7, Texas. The following year, so that was the end of that. The following year, Amazing Stories, which is some sort of publication, published another letter concerning underground activity around Texas, confirming that strange phenomena may exist in the state's western part, but this time the strangeness extends to the border of New Mexico. Amazing Stories. Is that what this last one was from? Yeah. An October 1947 issue of Amazing Stories. Okay, cool. Quote, published another letter concerning underground activity around Texas, confirming that strange phenomena may exist in the state's western part, but this time the strangeness extends to the border of New Mexico. Quote, the mysterious cave Mr. E. Stanton Brown spoke of in his letter is not exactly news to me. In 1938, a party of 6 of my friends and myself spent 7 months in that area of Texas and Upper Mexico. We were testing an electronic instrument that we had developed and needed lots of space and some mineral deposits for the various tests. So we got rather well acquainted with the Big Bend country and the Figure 2 ranch north of there. We arrived there in January and camped in the Sierra Blancas, storing a lot of our equipment at the town of Van Horn. By March, we had gotten deep into the rugged country, and as I recall, it was about the middle of March we stumbled into this cave, or a twin, that Mr. Brown speaks of in his letter. Everyone was so dumbfounded by it that we spent the better part of the rest of the month in making a thorough investigation. We penetrated the shaft into the distance of 870 feet, and at about 650 feet found some very finely executed writing on the right wall at eye level, in what resembles cuneiform or cuneiform. At 800 feet, one of the party fell over a cloth lying in the dust, and upon closer examination, it was found to be part of a blue shirt of fairly recent manufacture, indicating that someone else had been this far in recent times. This and an empty pint whiskey bottle dated 1897 was all we located to indicate recent occupation. Of course, in a country where desperados such as Blackjack and Billy the Kid, etc., hid out where they could, and the more solitary the better, such a find was not too surprising. At about 780 feet, the floor dips more sharply downward, and at near 900 feet, progress is very hazardous due to moisture and increased slant downwards. We carried rocks from the opening and rolled them from the point where we could no longer walk, but they simply faded out with a rumble after a few seconds. We tried rolling flaming yucca stumps to see if perhaps we might determine more about the boar farther on, but this proved to be futile, since the stumps burned poorly at best, probably due to bad air. It was very stuffy and hot after the first 300 feet from the opening. We held a powwow to try and figure out how we could go further down, but the only thing would have been lots of lariat ropes or a long steel cable, and neither was available nearer than some 50 miles. If Mr. Finley had taken the time to go hunting up in the Figure 2 ranch territory, he might have run across another, and to me more interesting, cave than the Big Bend one. About 62 miles north from the town of Van Horn, you go through the Salt Flat country, where the salt wars of the Old West occurred. Westward, some 8 or 9 miles from the road, is the Apache Canyon country, and as rugged as anywhere on the face of the globe. In an offshoot of Apache Canyon to the south is an almost impassable gash called Hell Canyon. The walls of this canyon rise precipitously for at least 1,000 feet and top out on Apache Peak on one side and an old Indian ceremonial ground on the other. More desolate country would be hard to imagine. Coyotes and mountain lions are plentiful, and panthers no novelty. I have seen as many as 34 deer in a herd down below on the grassy ledge sloping down toward the canyon floor. Of course, further up toward the box end of the canyon, it was much too rugged for deer, but a few mountain sheep are seen. It was in the wildest part of the canyon that the other cave was found. In fact, we almost fell into it. The high grass about the opening hid the dished-out entrance. Quote, we were at an elevation of approximately 7,000 feet, and going was tough, especially with a pack, and we had sloped to rest when one of the party remarked that it sounded hollow when any of us talked. Of course, we all yapped away, and at the same time trying to figure if this was so, and sure enough, it was. Further investigation located the hole some 6 feet to the left of where we had stopped. It was roughly oval in shape, some 30 by 18 feet, and bridged in the center, the short way by a natural rock. Oh, man, I don't know. Just take a deep breath for a second. For some reason, I'm seeming challenged for the comprehension of this, the way this is written. It's probably just me. So it was roughly oval shape, some 30 by 18 feet, and bridged in the center, the short way, by a natural rock arch heavy enough to support an elephant. In the center of the arch were 3 deep grooves caused, we hazarded, by rope passing over the arch. 3 deep grooves caused, we hazarded, by rope passing over the arch. We spent several hours in investigating the surrounding terrain to see if there might be any other entrances to the cave, but found none. It sloped sharply from the opening down about 200 feet, and then the bore disappeared, curving upward. We succeeded in getting down to the first level by tying all our ropes together, and subsequently investigated a lot of it. Treading through the soil were long stringers of quartz, but oddly enough at the same time, there were chunks of rock as big as a piano that were solid masses of seashells. Quite a lot of pottery, both broken and whole, was found. The most interesting thing was, however, that the further we went, the colder it got. Also, there was a sound of either rushing wind or water, which got louder the lower we went. We came upon 2 human skeletons not over 500 feet from the entrance, but they must have been very old as the bones crumbled at the touch. Everything was covered with a deep dust after passing the bend, and no indication of any living thing having passed there was ever noted. It was very dark and depressing, and the chill was very penetrating. When you consider that the outside temperature was near 100 degrees, you can imagine how we were dressed. We had 3 flashlights, one a 5-cell, and after a while, it was all that was left that would give a decent light. Down at what we estimated as 12,000 feet from the opening, we came smack up against a smooth stone wall. That was it. The end. None of us would admit it was natural. It was too smooth and perfect, and look as we would, we could not find a single flaw or crack in it. It was of marble-like texture and some 8 or 9 feet high in the center and around 11 wide. By placing our ears to the rock's surface, the roaring on the other side became much louder, and the rock was quite cold to the touch. There was natural marble near there, in Marble Canyon, where marble was once taken out in large quantities, and so the rock was native rock, I'm sure. Since the remaining light was all we had except matches, we voted to get back to the opening as soon as possible, and after a hard struggle upgrade, we got back to daylight and held a conference. We decided to bed down and talk it over further the next day, as it was getting late. However, the next day we were inclined to look foolishly at each other and claim it was all our imagination thinking there was anything strange on the other side of the barrier, and it was just another one of those many caves in the country. Carlsbad is just 65 miles north of there, and the whole country is no doubt honeycombed underneath. We finished our experiments and left late in July, but I have never been able to forget the caves and the odd sounds on the other side of that barrier, or for that matter, the barrier itself, for it was too perfect to be natural, I believe, or maybe I've just read too many amazing stories and am inclined to wild ideas, as the Mexicans say, quien sabe? Someday I'm going to write you a ding how, which is one word, ding dash how. Someday I'm going to write you a ding how, scientifiction science fiction on something or other, and then place it in my rejection notice among my souvenirs. Maybe then I can go on reading amazing stories in peace without wanting to dash off a dinger. And that's by K.A. Gukin, Carmel Radio and Sound Service, Box 1865, Carmel, California. Well, that was some stylized reading. That was not, well, it was a challenge. And we're almost to the very end of this. Just a couple more little paragraphs. So, yeah. In a letter appearing in issue number 14 of the Shaver Mystery Club Letterzine, Vaughn M. Green spoke of a possible entrance to cavern systems near the bottom of an elevator landing in the Hoover Dam near Las Vegas, which holds back Lake Mead. Early construction workers allegedly broke into and probably resealed large caverns while blasting out the cliffs near the base of the dam. In the lower elevator landing, according to Mr. Green, there was a wild tile inlay on the floor with signs of the zodiac and all sorts of stuff suggesting an entrance, end quote. He suggests a possible connection between this and the caverns which the workers broke into. Juicy. What? Signs of the zodiac? Inlay on the floor, signs of the zodiac? In a 1973 article, quote, amateur explorers discover vast cavern systems containing underground river of gold, end quote. Well, that's the article title, right? David Klein related the discovery of an unusual cavern system located some 300 miles northwest of Vancouver, British Columbia. Allegedly, the caverns contained large amounts of gold, huge, unidentifiable human or Sasquatch-like footprints, while albino frogs, perfectly round stones, and flowing underground rivers. Oh, no, not wild, but white albino frogs. Okay. And then perfectly round stones and flowing underground rivers. These findings, according to the article, were immediately suppressed by the Canadian government soon after word of the discovery got out. And that is the end of chapter 4. Dang, that was a big one, right? But it's been an hour and 37 minutes. That's great. 13737, it says. Wait, 11010. 111. So dang, you all, this is so cool. Thanks for hanging out with me. This book is so juicy. Maybe like 2 more readings, maybe 1. Probably 1. Oh man, 137.59. Yeah, I'm calling it. My chops, give them a rest, you know. So thank you. I love yous. That was fun. I really appreciate y'all's. And I'll see you probably tomorrow somewhere, if not tonight. So I'll see you until then. Mwah. Take care of yourselves. Thank you. I love yous. Thank you so much.